Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I want to welcome you to my tutorial on Zelle Chapter 11, Exercise 8. Exercise 8 says, write and test a function, remove duplicates. That's going to be the name of the function, and it's going to take in one argument some list, so we can assume that that's a list that removes duplicate values from a list. So kind of implicit in what we say here is it changes the list in place, and we've already learned how to do that with the list, so it should be fairly straightforward for us. What I'm going to do as the tutorial for this is I'm not going to create something that removes duplicates. I'm going to do something that's a little bigger. I'm going to do something called reduce multiples to doubles. So it's going to go through a list. It's going to look for any multiple occurrences of a value in a list that are greater than 2. Okay, that would be duplicates would be 2. Greater than 2, and it brings them down to 2. So I'm going to leave you with duplicates, and hopefully you'll be able to take my approach and adapt it to removing duplicates. And I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on how to test this and how to package it all up as a shareable module. Okay, so that's going to be another one of the skills that you're going to get the chance to practice while you're doing this. So let's get started. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is in this case, I am not going to call the I'm not going to call the file chapter whatever exercise whatever. I'm going to call it a particular descriptive name, and in this case, I'm going to call it reduce multiples to doubles. All right, it's a Python file, and let's make it a little bigger here. And I'm going to begin with a comment with the name of the file. And I want to tell you this practice of putting the name of the file at the top is probably followed more by courseware developers than anybody else. When you go and print the file in a textbook, then you know what the name of the file is. So you may find as you develop your style that it's going to be a little bit away from putting a comment with it's kind of redundant. When you know the name of the file, putting that as the opening comment is kind of redundant. Okay, but that's what we've been doing, and we're going to keep doing it. So this is going to be a module. These are .py. They're module files. Typically, what we have put in it is one function called a main. Okay, that we ran. By calling main, and you know, we would use lots of other code. Now this is going to be a module that is designed to be imported into another program, right? So it's going to be a little different. Okay, this is going to be a utility module. Okay, maybe if we had a utility module, it would have more than one function in it. Okay, we might have more elaborate packaging overall, but just packaging up one utility module like this, well, that's not a bad start. Okay, So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to define the function reduce multiples to doubles. Okay. And just like the real problem that you're going to be solving, I'm going to pass in a list. And I'm going to call this original list. And I'm going to call this that because of the algorithm that I'm going to use to solve this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the pseudocode for this. Okay, there really are two steps. So let's see if we can express it. So we're going to begin by emptying the original list, while creating a new list without multiples greater than doubles. Right? So the original list is going to be our source, and we're going to pull things out of it. We're actually going to pop things out of it until it's empty. And while we're doing that, we're going to create a new list. And the new list is going to get what we want to be the result of this function. And that's going to be, we're going to put things into it, but we're going to make sure that we don't get more than 2 occurrences of the same value. Okay? So when we're done with that code, then we have a new list that has either 1 or 2 occurrences of all the values in it. And it's our answer, but it's in the wrong spot. Okay? It's in a new list, and we need to get those answers back to the original list. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to add the items from the new list to the now empty original list. Okay? We're not going to have anything to return because this is a function that changes a list in place. You'll remember that we can do that because lists are mutable. So we can change them in place. You can pass us a reference to the list and we can actually change it in place. So originals, not spelled right. All right. So let's get started on the first part. Well, we're going to need a new list. So let's create an empty new list equals empty list. All right. And now what we need to do is we need to go through the new list. We need to go through the original list, and we need to take each entry out of the list. And then we have to decide if we're going to put it into the new list. And do we always just want to take them out and put them into the new list? Well, we do, unless we've already got 2. Okay? Because we don't want any more than doubles. So we don't want to add a third one in. We don't want to add we never want to add a third one in. Okay? We'll add a first one in. We'll add a second one in, but never a third. So we're not getting rid of duplicates. We're getting rid of triples and higher. So what kind of loop should we use? Well, let's use a while loop. So let's say while the original list is not equal to the empty list. Okay? It turns out that actually works. It's very nice. Okay? Because we're actually taking things out of the original list. Okay? We're going to pop them out. Okay? So, let's have a place to save the item or the element that we just got out of the list. Let's call it item. And let's ask original list to pop one of the elements out. Pop. And which one do we want? Well, we want to pop the one in the 0 position. Okay? So that's going to do two things if you look up the methods for list and you look at pop. One is it's going to return the value of whatever's in the 0 position. And so we're going to save it in item. But the other thing is it's going to delete it. It really pops it off the list. Okay. And now, whoops, sorry about that. Now, well, we have to decide whether or not we're going to save it into the new list. Well, if we just simply automatically save it into the new list, well, then we're going to get triples and quadruples and all that kind of stuff. So we've got to decide if we still have less than 2 of these values in our new list. If we have less than 2, we add another one, well, we go up to 2. But if we've already got 2, we don't want to add one, we'll go to 3. And we're trying to get rid of triples and hires. So let's find out how many are in the new list. So let's call it count in new list. Okay, it's going to be an int equals new list. And we're going to call the method count. And let's find out how many things we have in there that match item. Okay. All right. So now we just want to make sure we've got fewer than 2. So let's just say if count in new list less than 2, well, then we can add it to the new list. So let's just say new list append item. Pretty cool. That is it. Okay, so what's going to happen? Well, if there are fewer than 2, then it's going to add it to the list. Once we get to 2, they're just going to be eaten because we're popping them off of the original list, so they're being taken out of there, but we're not adding them to the new list, so they're just ignored. Okay? So now we should have a new list that is the same, has the same contents that the original list had, but all triples, quadruples, quintuples, and higher have been eliminated. We've just got singles and doubles. Great. So that's the answer that we want. Unfortunately, it's not in the original list. We want to change the list in place. So what's the state of our original list? Well, we know that it's empty because we're finally out of the loop. So we've popped everything off of that list, everything out of the list. So what can we do to add the stuff from our new list into the empty original list? Well, it turns out that there is a method for lists called extend that does just what we want. So let's try that. So we're going to say original list, and we're going to ask it to, we're going to call a method extend. So we're going to say extend yourself with the members, the items that are in new list. and we are done. Okay, so what happens is it just takes all of the items that are on the new list. It leaves them on the new list. It's not destructive, but it copies them and adds them to the original list. It extends the values that are in there. Of course, it's empty, so when we're done, the original list and the new list have the same set of values. And the original list is in the state that we want to leave it in when we're done. Well, I think that's the code right there. It's that simple. Okay? Now, if you have a module like this, how are you going to test it? Well, we've already seen some examples of modules like this where they have a test code or demonstration code right in the module. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to have a main. So let's have a main. So we're going to def main. And are we always going to run main? Oh, let's put a pass up here so that it's not complaining about the extra, about the empty main. Okay. And down here, are we always going to run the main? No, this is exactly the use case where it makes sense to check if I'm running this as a main. So let's just go back to, for instance, gpa.py, and you'll see down here, here's the code that we call to only run this if we are running the module as it is right now. We've loaded up, we're running it all by itself. It's going to run main. If, on the other hand, we import this into another .py file with an import, this will not run. So this is a great way to hide either some demonstration code or some test code, and we've been using it all, for the past couple of chapters, but we've really not used it in the full sense. Okay, so let's put the test code in. Okay, now, first of all, the output from the test, what kind of test is this? This is what we call a unit test. Okay, the unit of code is the function. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to fully test all the conditions that we believe need to be tested. So we need a number of test cases. We've been talking about this all along. So we're going to print the output to the console, and let's begin by saying this is unit testing output. I'm going to put a ... so that you know that it follows. Okay? Great. So how are we going to do the first unit test? Well, let's think about what the test case is. Okay? Well, the trivial case of this is when we get a list that doesn't have any multiples at all. They're all singles. Okay? We just want it to copy the list and not introduce any errors. You know, we want to copy everything that's there and only the things that are there. So let's have that be our first test case. Okay? So let's print information that's going to identify the test case. So let's say test case 1. Okay. And let's describe the case, no multiples. And we're going to say that the members in here are going to be strings. Okay, it should work the same with everything, but we'll test it with strings, and maybe we'll test it a little bit later with ints. Okay, that's good. So is that going to print out the way I want it? No, every test case I want to skip a line first. So let's start it with the \n. Okay. So now we have enough to test. We'll test that we get unit testing output, and we get the header for the first test case. So let's give it a run. And let's see what we got. Unit testing output, test case 1, no multiples using strings. Okay, let's put the test case together. Okay, so let's create an input list. Okay, and let's use let's create a list with color names. So let's put in red, green, yellow, orange. So red, green, has to be the string green. Yellow, orange. Okay, that looks good. Now, let's predict what the result's going to be. Well, so let's create another list called expected result. And we're going to expect to get the same list back. Okay? The way we wrote the code there, it should keep the order. So if we put in red, green, yellow, orange, we should get back red, green, yellow, orange. Okay. Now we're going to have to call our method. Okay. So how are we going to do this? Well, it's not a method actually, it's a function. So we're going to use the name of the function, reduce multiples to doubles. And what are we going to do it on? We're going to do it on input list. So I'm just going to copy that name and plug it in here. All right. So when we get it back, we're expecting to get it back in the same shape that we got it. All right. Now, how can we test that? Well, we're gonna. So let's test whether the input list and the expected result match. Okay, so say if input list equal expected result, well then we're going to want to print passed because it passed the test. Else we're going to want to print failed. Okay, it looks pretty good. So let's give this a run. So I'm going to come down here and run it again. And let's see, test case 1, no multiples using strings, passed. Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that maybe this comparison that I created, maybe it's, for some kind of reason, I'm not really getting a good comparison. Maybe this is always going to pass. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one value out of the list. Okay. And I'm going to say that I'm expecting the wrong answer. And let's give this a run. No, it does a good comparison because that one failed. Very good. So that's a pretty good test case. So let's go back over. I'm just going to do I'm on my Mac, so I'm going to do a Command Z. And let's get back the red. Okay, and then I'm going to run it again. And I'm going to make sure that it passed. Okay, So the nice thing here is that we have a homegrown unit testing framework. Now this kind of emulates all the good ones, okay? In unit testing frameworks, you identify the case somehow. In this case, we identify it by having a printed string. You specify the input to the code that you're going to call. You predict the output. You call the code and get the output back. And then you compare the output, which happens to be, since we're changing it in place, is an input list, to the expected result. And if they're equal, then you passed. And if they're not equal, then you failed. Okay? The only thing that these frameworks often do is if you passed, it usually shows you some green, and if you failed, it usually shows you some red. Okay, well, we're not going to go that far. Well, the interesting thing here is we can just take the code we have and we can copy it and clone it for all of our test cases. So this tested no multiples. Let's create a test case 2. We're just going to do it by copying. Okay, we're going to clone it. Okay, and we're going to call it test case 2. And we're going to have some doubles. Okay, some doubles using strings. Okay, so what do we want? So let's have a double for red and a double for green. Okay, so what happens? Well, we're just going to add some things. Let's add another red, and let's add another green. Okay, now can I have 2 reds and 2 greens? Yeah, I can. Okay, I just can't have any multiples greater than doubles. Okay, so what should the result come back to? Well, I should get back what I gave it. And because our code, our algorithm is kind of stable, it keeps them in the same order, well, I can just take this description of a list and copy it, because we're expecting to get back the same list when we have doubles, no matter how many doubles we have. Okay, let's give this one a run. So I just want to check. I changed the number of the test case and the description of it. Some doubles using strings. All right, let's give it a run. Okay. All right. Oh, and guess what? It's really not running right, because our print that creates the header for the test case, it's hanging off of that other else. All right, now that's looking better. All right, let's run it again. Make it get big. So my second test case, some doubles using strings, it passed as well. That's great. All right, what's my next test case? Well, I want to go over doubles. Okay, so let's do that. Let's clone test case 2 and create test case 3. Okay, and this one I don't have an indentation problem on my header, so I'm going to change the number in the header to 3. And what do I want to do? Well, triples. I want some triples using strings. Now, am I going to expect those to be the same? No. Okay, so let's add those onto the end. Let's have both red and green go to triples. Okay, and I'm going to do them in an interesting order. I'm going to do green and then red. Okay, I did that. Now, am I going to expect to get the same thing back? Well, no. I'm going to expect it to eat the triple one, the third one of each. So let's do this. Let's copy what we're sending it, and let's say, well, it's going to be the same as what we're sending it, except we're not going to get the third green or the third red. So let's just take the last red and get rid of it, the last green, and get rid of that. That's what we're expecting to get back. Okay? We're expecting to get back 2 reds, 2 greens, but no triples. Well, let's give it a test. See if we pass. It passed. Pretty darn neat. Okay, are we done with our results? Well, let's try quadruples, just for the heck of it. Now, I know the way we wrote our code, and if we're on either side of that test for 2, if we tested with 1, we tested with 2, we tested with 3, we're probably going to be the same for 4, but humor me, okay? I'm just going to do it where I've got 1 that has 4. Okay? So this is test case 4. Okay, and some quadruples using strings. Okay, so we need one of these to be quadrupled. Let's make that red. Add 1 on there. Okay. And we're not expecting it to change. We've added yet another red, but it should not be carrying it through. So we should get the same answer we got the time before. You know, when we add the third or we add the fourth, they should not be copied down. So when we get done, we're expecting 2 reds, 2 greens, 1 yellow, 1 orange. Let's give it a test. Okay. All right. So what else I want to do? I just want to prove that this also works with ints. Okay. So let's take the triples one. Okay. And let's turn it into using a different type, just for the heck of it. Okay, and it indented that. We don't want that. So this is test case 5, and some triples using ints. Okay, so let's first of all, let's get rid of our expected result there, because we'll do it by copying. All right. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so 1 and 2 are triples, 3 and 4 are singles. Okay. So what do we expect to get? Well, I'm going to expect to get back, well, certainly 1, 2, 3, 4 are fine. And then 1 and 2 are fine, but we're not going to get the last 1 and 2 because that would make 3. So let's get rid of that. That's the answer I think we're going to get. These last 2 are not going to copy through. So let's give that a test. That's test case 5. And let's look. Test case 5, sum triples using ints, passed. I think this is a pretty good set of test cases. Okay, now I'm done with this. Okay, I can inspect the code. Let me go and inspect the code. See if there's anything it doesn't like. And fix it. Expression can be simplified. Let's see what it says. Replace Boolean expression with original list. Okay. Well, I kind of like it the way I have it here. This is, it's saying that I can just say while original list, and that's the equivalent of original list not empty. But I don't think that that's as descriptive. So even though it's complaining, I'm going to stay where I am. I kind of like what I have. Okay, so I'm going to take that. So I think I'm pretty well ready to go. Now, how do you use code from this kind of module? Well, how did we use code in GPA sort? Let's look. Well, we said from GPA import what we're going to use. We did the class and the name of the method. So it's going to be from the name of the module file, import the name of the method. Well, let's just copy that and let's create a new Python file, and let's call this reduce multiples demonstration, right? So we've got that. Okay, so we've got reduce multiples demonstration. Let's put the name of the file up here. Reduce, make it a little bigger. Multiples demonstration. .py. Okay. And we want to have a main. So let's define the main. And let's put empty code in there for now, pass. And let's just go back and copy that code. It's always a good practice to, instead of having just a call to main, do that. Okay, so reduce multiples demonstration. Well, that's that. Okay, so let's start out by printing demonstrate importing and using reduce multiples to doubles. Paren. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So let's create the input list. Equals. Now we want to make sure it's a list. So let's use yet another kind. Let's use floats. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Okay, and let's say expected result. Well, we're expecting it the same one back. Okay, and we're expecting it to work with floats as well. All right, that looks good. And so let's actually do the work. Okay, so let's, oh, you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to do the import. So go to GPA sort. Remember that? I was trying to copy that. So let's do our import. It's going to be up here. So it's from GPA? Well, no, it's from reduce multiples to doubles. And I'm not going to say this is a good name for a module, but we've been kind of naming things after their contents. Import what? Well, we're going to have the name of a method. So reduce multiples to doubles. Okay, so that's how we get the import. That's how we're able to use reduce multiples to doubles. So now that we've imported it, we know about it. Reduce multiples to doubles, and what are we going to what are we going to call it with? Well, input list. Okay. And then let's say if input list equal expected result print passed else print failed, and that's it. So let's see that go. So we're expecting that to pass right now. Okay, let's give it a run. Okay, so let's right click and say run reduce multiples demo. That's the one we want. And it says demonstrate importing and using, and it says it passed. Well, that's good. Okay, and I just want to make sure it works with multiples. Okay, so let's give it just 4 versions of 1.1. 1.1, there's the second one, 1.1, there's the third one, 1.1, there's the fourth one. Okay, and what are we expecting? We'll get only 2. So it's only going to add the first of these down here. And let's see if that passes. So we're going to run, and son of a gun, that passed. So that's it. That's how you would demonstrate that you're able to use the code that we created. So what's up to you to do? Well, really 2 things. Okay, you can work from my code, that's fine, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change the method itself so that it only allows singles. It doesn't allow doubles, triples, so it doesn't allow any multiples at all. Okay, that should be pretty straightforward. But then you're going to have to write the test cases. Okay, and I want you to take this kind of approach, and I also want you to come over here and write a demonstration program, okay, to prove that you can import it and use it, okay? And now we've learned not only how to manipulate a list, but how to create a function that is shareable in a module, and it's importable, and we're able to use it in another program. And you'll notice here, when we imported this, all that test code did not run. Okay, and why didn't it run? Well, it didn't run because we checked. This is only going to run when you're running this file itself. It's not going to run when you import it. And why is that? Because it fails this test. That's why. All right, you're on your own. Good luck. Bye for now.